Ada never imagined that the quietest betrayal in her life would come wrapped in laughter, shared memories, and the voice she trusted most. The afternoon sun poured through the thin curtain of her small apartment in Surulere, Lagos. The generator from the next compound hummed loudly, mixing with the distant calls of hawkers selling roasted corn and cold sachet water. She stood in front of the mirror, her swollen belly stretching the soft cotton of her gown, while her hands slowly spread the foamy bubbles of the body wash across her skin. The bubbles were light and fragrant, the only luxury she allowed herself these days. Pregnancy had changed everything. Her body, her plans, her friendships, her understanding of love. She rubbed the bubbles gently across her stomach and smiled faintly. Inside her was the one thing that still felt pure, still untouched by lies, still innocent, still hers. But everything else had fallen apart. And the worst part was that it had started with someone she had called sister, Zainab. They met in their first year at the University of Ibadan. Two girls from different backgrounds but similar struggles. Ada was from Enugu, raised by a strict mother who believed that respect was the only inheritance she could afford to give her children. Zainab was from Ilorin, loud, funny, and full of life, with a laughter that made people turn their heads even in crowded lecture halls. They bonded over the simplest things, sharing gari when money finished, borrowing each other's clothes for departmental dinners, staying up late to study when exams came like armed robbers, sudden and merciless. But what sealed their friendship was pain. Ada had just lost her father in her second year. Zainab was the one who stayed with her in the hostel room when she cried for 3 nights straight. Zainab braided her hair when Ada had no strength. Zainab forced her to eat when grief locked her throat. Zainab slept beside her and whispered, "You're not alone." From that moment, Ada stopped calling her friend. She called her family. Years passed and life moved like Lagos traffic, slowly, then suddenly fast. After Nice, Ada moved to Lagos in search of opportunity. Zainab came too. They rented a small, self-contained apartment together in Yaba, splitting bills and dreams in equal measure. They faced the city together. The job rejections, the rising cost of food, the landlord's constant reminders, the uncertainty. Through it all, Zainab remained the same, loud, protective, loyal. Or so Ada believed. It was during one of those restless Lagos nights that Ada met Tunde. He was charming in a quiet way, not the loud type, not the flashy type.
He spoke softly and listened more than he talked. He worked in a logistics company and seemed steady. The kind of man who didn't promise heaven but made you believe in tomorrow. Ada fell slowly. Carefully. She had watched too many relationships crash like poorly built bridges. But Tunde was patient. He didn't rush her. He respected her space. He spoke about future plans with a calm confidence that made everything feel possible. And when she finally introduced him to Zainab, Zainab approved, or so it seemed. "He's calm," Zainab had said that night after Tunde left. "Not like those noisy boys that only know how to spray perfume and heartbreak." They laughed, and Ada felt safe. The three of them began to spend time together. Movie nights, street food outings, church programs, even birthday surprises. Zainab would tease them endlessly. "Ada, this one is serious, oh. Better hold him tight before Lagos girls snatch him." Ada trusted her completely. So when she found out she was pregnant, Zainab was the first person she called. It was early morning. Ada's hands were shaking as she held the test strip. 2 lines, clear, unmistakable. Her heart raced with fear and wonder. She called Zainab before even calling Tunde. Zainab rushed home from work immediately. She hugged Ada tightly, screaming and laughing at the same time. "We're going to be aunties," she joked, placing her hand on Ada's still flat stomach. She promised to stand by her, promised to help her tell Tunde, promised to support her no matter what happened. And she did, at least in the beginning. But slowly things began to shift. Tunde started visiting less. He was always busy, always tired, always distracted. Ada blamed work pressure. Zainab seemed more attentive than ever, cooking for her, attending clinic visits, rubbing her back when nausea struck. Sometimes Ada would wake at night and see Zainab on her phone, smiling at something. She thought nothing of it, until the night everything changed. Tunde had come over after weeks of excuses. He fell asleep on the couch after dinner. His phone buzzed. Ada wasn't the type to check phones. She never believed in it, but the screen lit up repeatedly. The name that flashed was one she knew too well, Zainab. Her heart skipped. Maybe it was about something urgent. Maybe it was about her. Maybe... Her fingers trembled as she picked up the phone. The message preview appeared. Did she suspect anything? Ada froze. Another message followed. I miss you already. The room spun. Her breath caught in her throat. Her best friend, her sister, the woman who held her when she cried about this very man, was the one asking if she suspected. Her world cracked silently in that moment. No shouting, no breaking glass, just a quiet, devastating realization. The betrayal wasn't sudden. It had been growing quietly behind her back. And now, standing in her bathroom months later, spreading bubbles across her pregnant belly, Ada understood. The pain was no longer sharp. It had become something deeper, something heavier. But her child was still hope, still truth, still hers. Ada did not scream that night. She didn't wake Tunde. She didn't confront anyone. She simply sat there on the edge of the bed, staring at the glow of the phone screen as if it would suddenly rearrange itself into something less cruel. But it didn't. More messages came in, and with each one the truth unfolded like a wound reopening. I hate lying to her. She trusts me too much. Once the baby comes, things will be easier. Ada's hands went cold. The room suddenly felt too small, too tight, too unfamiliar. This was the same couch where they had laughed together. The same house where Zainab had prayed for her pregnancy. The same space where trust had lived. Now it felt contaminated. She gently placed the phone back on Tunde's chest. He shifted slightly in his sleep but didn't wake. For a moment, Ada looked at his face. This was the man she had imagined building a future with. The father of her unborn child. The one she had defended when her mother asked if she was sure about him. And now, he was just a stranger who shared her child's blood. She didn't cry. Not that night. The tears didn't come. It was as if her body refused to acknowledge what her mind already knew. Instead, she stood up quietly and walked into the bathroom. She turned on the tap and watched the water run. Her reflection in the mirror looked back at her. Swollen eyes, stretched skin, a life growing inside her. And suddenly she felt the baby move. A small flutter. A gentle reminder. Life was still happening, even in the middle of betrayal. Days passed before she said anything. She needed to be sure. Needed to understand how deep it went. She began to observe. Tunde's sudden meetings. Zainab's late-night calls. The way they avoided eye contact when they were in the same room. The way their laughter around her sounded forced. And the silence between them when they thought she wasn't paying attention. It was no longer a suspicion. It was a pattern. The betrayal had roots, and it had been growing for longer than she wanted to admit. One afternoon, she decided to confront Zainab. Tunde was at work. The house was quiet except for the sound of a neighbor's generator and the distant cry of a baby somewhere down the street. Zainab sat on the floor peeling oranges, her usual cheerful self. Ada watched her for a long moment. This was the same girl who once shared her last plate of noodles during their broke university days. The same one who braided her hair before graduation. The same one who danced wildly at her birthday last year. The same one who now carried a secret heavy enough to destroy everything. Ada's voice was calm when she spoke. How long? Zainab looked up. Since when? Ada asked again. Zainab's hands froze. For a moment, denial flickered in her eyes. Then fear. Then something else. Guilt. Since when? Ada repeated. Silence stretched between them. The kind of silence that only exists when truth has nowhere left to hide. Finally, Zainab spoke. It didn't start like that. Ada let out a small laugh. It wasn't funny, but it was the only sound that came out. It never does, she replied. Zainab's voice trembled. He started talking to me when you were always busy at work. He said he felt lonely, that you were distant. Ada felt a sharp sting in her chest, not because she believed it, but because she recognized the excuse, the same one countless women had been fed. He said he didn't want to worry you, Zainab continued. And you wanted to comfort him? Ada asked quietly. Zainab's eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean for it to go this far, but it had. Ada could see it clearly now. The small glances, the secret messages, the hidden laughter. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. Repeated, sustained, nurtured. You were there when I told him about the baby, Ada said softly. Zainab's shoulders shook. I was scared, she whispered. Scared of what? Ada asked. Losing everything. Ada nodded slowly. And you thought the best way to keep everything was to take mine? Zainab had no answer.
The truth hung heavy in the air. Later that evening, Tunde came home to find both women sitting in silence. He sensed it immediately. The tension, the stillness, the absence of warmth. Ada didn't shout. She didn't accuse. She simply told him she knew. And in that moment, his silence confirmed everything. No denial, no surprise, just quiet surrender. The following weeks were the hardest. Not because of arguments, but because of emptiness. Tunde stopped coming. Zainab moved out. The house became unbearably quiet. And Ada was left alone with her thoughts and her growing belly. At first, the loneliness felt like punishment, like she had failed, like she wasn't enough. But slowly, something shifted. She began to see clearly. Their betrayal was not a reflection of her worth. It was a revelation of their character. Her baby continued to grow. With each kick, each movement, she felt a new strength forming inside her, a quiet resilience. She attended clinic visits alone, cooked alone, slept alone. But she was no longer broken, just changed. One evening, as she stood in the bathroom applying the soft, bubbly body wash across her skin, she realized something. The pain had softened, not disappeared, but transformed. It was no longer a wound. It was a lesson. She had lost a partner. She had lost a best friend. But she had gained clarity, and she had gained herself. The baby moved again beneath her hands. She smiled. Betrayal had taken much from her, but it had not taken everything. And as she rinsed the bubbles away, she understood that some endings were not losses. They were beginnings in disguise. Say continue, and I'll take the story to its powerful, emotional ending. The weeks that followed were not dramatic in the way movies like to show heartbreak. There were no screaming matches in the street. No thrown plates, no public disgrace, just a quiet rearranging of life. Zainab packed her things one Saturday morning while Ada sat in the living room pretending to scroll through her phone. The silence between them was thick, heavy with words neither of them could fix anymore. Zainab paused at the door before leaving. "I'm sorry," she said. Ada looked up. For a moment she almost saw the girl from university again, the one who once slept beside her on a narrow hostel bed and whispered comfort into the darkness. But that version of Zainab no longer existed. Or maybe she had simply never known her fully. Ada nodded. Not in forgiveness, not in anger, just in acceptance. Zainab left, and with her went years of shared history. Tunde tried calling. At first, Ada didn't pick up. Then one day she did, not because she wanted closure, but because she wanted peace. He sounded tired, smaller than she remembered. "I messed up," he said. The simplicity of it almost made her laugh. As if betrayal were a misplaced key, as if trust were something that could be casually dropped and picked up again. She didn't insult him, didn't shout, didn't ask why. She only told him one thing. "I'm not fighting you, I'm choosing myself." He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked about the baby. Ada told him the baby was fine, because that was the only part of her life that still felt untouched. He said he wanted to be involved. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She simply ended the call. Life, after betrayal, did not pause. The landlord still came knocking. Food still had to be bought. Clinic visits still had to be attended. Lagos still moved with its usual impatience. But Ada began to move differently. There was a stillness in her now, a new kind of awareness. She stopped blaming herself for signs she didn't see, stopped replaying moments in her head, stopped asking what she could have done differently. Instead, she focused on what she could do now. Her mother came from Enugu when the pregnancy entered its final months. She arrived with bags of dried vegetables, ogbono, and the firm kind of love that only African mothers know how to give. Her mother didn't ask many questions. She didn't demand explanations. She simply helped, cooked, cleaned, massaged Ada's swollen feet. And sometimes late at night she would sit beside her and say softly, "You didn't fail. People fail themselves." The words stayed with Ada. The baby grew stronger. The kicks became firmer, more demanding, more alive. And with every movement, Ada felt her own strength returning. The day labor started, it was raining. Heavy Lagos rain that flooded the gutters and slowed traffic to a stubborn crawl. Her mother rushed to get help. The neighbor called a taxi. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and urgency. Hours blurred together. Pain came in waves that stole her breath. But beneath it all there was purpose. This was not pain without meaning. This was pain that brought life. And when the cry finally filled the room, Ada wept. Not from sorrow, not from betrayal, but from release. Her child was here. A baby girl. Tiny, warm, perfect. She held her close, tracing the soft curve of her cheek. In that moment, something inside Ada settled. Not everything was broken. Not everything was lost. Some things had survived, and some things were just beginning. Tunde came to see the baby weeks later. He stood awkwardly near the door, holding guilt like a visible weight. Ada allowed him to carry the child, because the baby deserved truth, not bitterness, but she no longer carried expectation. Zainab never returned. Sometimes Ada thought about her, not with rage, but with a quiet understanding that some people enter your life for seasons, not forever. Months passed. Ada learned the rhythm of motherhood. Sleepless nights, soft laughter, tiny hands gripping her finger. And slowly, she learned the rhythm of herself again. She returned to work part-time, rebuilt friendships, strengthened boundaries. She was no longer the woman who believed love meant unquestioned loyalty. She now understood that trust must be earned and protected. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the crowded Lagos skyline, Ada stood once again in her bathroom. Her daughter slept peacefully in the next room. She picked up her body wash and spread the familiar soft bubbles across her skin. The scent filled the air. Gentle. The end. Thank you for watching.